So now that we've discussed why and how money enters into the cash value component of a life insurance policy, and we're getting this 4% rate of return on our money. So we can all say that that's a nice, safe place to be able to store money. It's guaranteed. We know it's going to accumulate there. But the thing to consider is this is compounding interest. And most people disregard that, just assuming that any account they stick money in is going to get this guaranteed compounding interest. Well, that's definitely not the case. And there's a massive difference between actual returns and average returns, right? And so when people look at the stock market and other investment vehicles, they look and say, okay, well, on average, over a 40, 50-year period, the stock market is going to return 7% or 8% or whatever the number that they pull out. That is an average number, meaning that you are riding the roller coaster up and down with the stock market throughout that time. And on average, if you took all of those 40 plus years and divided all the returns up, you would get that rate. But what that doesn't tell you is all of the missed opportunities that happen in those valleys when the return is negative or even or draws back. And so for compounding interest to really take off, we need a couple of factors. One is a consistent rate of return, and that means it never gets interrupted, right? So if we look at the stock market, the Great Depression, the 80s savings and loan crisis, the 2001 dot-com bubble, the 2008 housing crisis, the 2020 pandemic, these are moments when the stock market drops by 40, 50, even up to 100%. In some cases, it just completely, the bottom falls out. Even if it's for a short amount of time, there is a climb back period that happens. It could be a month, it could be several years. And so if you are in one of those periods, you are losing the opportunity of guaranteed growth or the compounding interest during those times, right? So the old adage is if you have an account that drops by 50%, you actually have to return 100% just to get back to the rate of where you were. So it's important to think about compounding interest over the long term and that we're getting an actual guaranteed rate, not an average. So I'm going to show you here on the screen a simple illustration that we use. And this is just one of our insurance providers, the illustration software. And in this simple example, all we're doing is putting in $25,000 a year. This is a 35-year-old male for 10 years. So age 35 through age 45, we're contributing $25,000 per year, or that's the max that we have the ability to in this particular policy. So that's what you're seeing years 1 through 10 here. And you're seeing a net outlay of $25,000 per year. Then after age 45, we just decide we don't want to put any more money into this. We just want to let it sit and grow. And what you're going to notice in this column right here that says net cash value, this is the one we want to take a look at. You'll see in the beginning, there's going to be a little bit of a pullback while the cash that's going in is going to go to the expense of the insurance. But as things start to scale, this is where compounding interest gets really, really exciting. So as we get out, even if you look at year 10 to start, we would have contributed $250,000 total or $25,000 for 10 years. And look at the growth, $287,000, right? So that's about $37,000 in growth just by the time we get to year 10. We'll now start to look at things if we go out towards retirement age. So remember, we only, in this case, contributed up until age 45. But if we look up at age 65 here, look at total outlay, right? We only put $250,000 in. We stopped at year 45, age 45. Look at the net cash value, $653,000, right? So that's 2.5 times roughly what you put in growth over that 30-year period just by contributing for 10 years. That is the power of compounding interest. And that's what happens when you have a net return. This is a net return probably about 4%. And again, this is not the end vehicle. This isn't the whole investment itself. This is just the area where we store our cash, the warehouse where our cash sits. Why not have it in the most advantageous place possible? If you have it in your bank account, you're not going to be getting not anywhere near this kind of guaranteed growth. If you put it in the stock market, yeah, you might be able to get higher rate of return in 1 year or a couple of years, but over the long term, are you going to be breaking down in those different spots? And so the beauty is having the money in a policy like this where you're getting compounding, guaranteed, consistent rate of return because you can see how powerful it is. And as we scale this thing out, even as you get into your 80s and 90s, you still, right, only put in $250,000 and look at when you're 89 years old, you have $1.5 million in there, right? So that's the flywheel that kicks in when compounding interest really does its thing.